as everybody has probably been watching, Congress is very slow, and even like appointing the new Securities and Exchange Commission commissioners to help make these rules having to do with this Jobs Act that includes crowdfunding and soliciting people, strangers, over the internet, which you cannot do now, and offer a piece of your, as an investment to your project. You have to go through all kinds of SEC.
Can you elaborate on that? Is that
Sure.
just for film? Is that for any
No,
industry?
it's for any the Jobs Act itself is concerned, if you start reading through the original legislation, there's a lot of parts to it. The crowdfunding is only one, but it talks about startup. They want to help startup companies, and so there's a lot of them having to do with inventions and things like that.
But if you're on Kickstarter and you have a platform, anybody can contribute. Is that
yes,
correct?
That's why, because they're contributing. They're not getting anything. They're not investing. In other words, they're giving you the money free. Oh, you give them a tchotchke back, whatever you decide to do. You don't have to do anything. I mean, obviously, because they're not investing in your film. They're just helping you raise funds or whatever. It's a totally different thing. Whereas if you get in there with that crowdfunding, you're going to be able to, solicit films, not give them anything back until you make money yourself. On the back end, as everybody knows, so that's where you're going to be allowed to do that with certain restrictions having to do with how rich the people are who are investing now. The first thing they've done now is they've gone and set down the rules for the super rich people to, they literally want people over $1 million per year, whatever it is, that when they invest in somebody's, they're a little more easy to lose the money. A lot of it's, the crowdfunding rules do have keys to how much you're able to lose, to make sure that you're not, and the distinction between people that are involved with the film themselves, managers or something like that, as opposed to strict investors who are not having to do or unsophisticated as far as filmmaking goes. They may be sophisticated as far as investing goes. So there's a lot of rules having to do with that, and the benefit to that is you can, first of all, you don't have 5% taken out of your amount, which all the Indiegogo, the Kickstarter, that they're not free services. You pay 5% of whatever if you end up getting your money, 5% goes to them. Okay, well, that's fine. And then you have to give out whatever, somebody was talking about, they're going to give out, a CD or something like that because they're, everybody funded their, their album. But then they forgot how much it was going to cost them to mail all those out to people, and they ended up losing money off of it. It was, so if you're looking at something like you're going to invest in my project, you're not going to make any money until I make money, or until, some particular thing, at some point where investors make money, and you say, okay, that's fine, I'll do that, I'll take that risk. I'm able to take that risk, I make such and such amount of money, or whatever it is. And then if you don't make money, boom, nobody has to be paid back. That's, whereas with this Kickstarter, everything, you're paying people. You're sending stuff out and you're paying people. The problem with the portion of the Crowdfunding Act, part of the Jobs Act, that in relation to films is in the place where it's like you're soliciting a lot of little investors, which everybody wants to go over the internet and do that. You're limited to $1 million off of that. How many films, you can go ask the film commissioner how many films he thinks are made that are any good that are under $1 million, that's the film commissioner. But so it is a limited amount of money, whereas Kickstarter, Indiegogo, you can get as much as you want. Yes, sir.
Okay, so in the Jobs Act, they passed legislation that said that if it's under $1 million, then you can broadcast solicitations.
No, you can only use that crowdfunding portal, and like the rules that they're going to make up to widely solicit, just general public, not sophisticated investors or anything like that. You can only get up to $1 million. In other words, you can only get people to invest up to that much. That's the cutoff on that.
Okay,
which is low for film,
Right. So there was suggested legislation that organizations like Indiegogo, Kickstarter had to be licensed.
Registered with the SEC.
Right, had to be registered to do
if
that.
they do decide to get in, and some of them are getting into it. I think Indiegogo's getting into it. I'm trying to remember.
Admit it. You're the one who killed him. You seduced him. gained his confidence. And then when he wasn't looking, you reached into your purse, and without conscience or remorse, you pulled out a gun and shot him. And cut. Curious? Visit theindygathering.com, a film festival, and so much more.
In today's world, there is an absolute need to know how to protect yourself. But who has the time or money for lengthy training sessions with techniques you may not remember in a time of need, or which can wind up putting you in even more danger? With Escape and Survive, you will learn effective, easy-to-remember techniques for getting out of dangerous situations. No complicated moves, no expensive, time-consuming training, just common sense self-defense. Book your seminar today at escapeandsurvive.com.
I'm trying to remember because I did read an article about how they're already gearing up to try to be able to comply with a lot of the rules that are coming up as far as being a crowdfunding portal. And the crowdfunding portal can't be somebody that owns part of the film. It can't be somebody who
So that has to be an independent third party.
Yeah, there's rules for how to do, but a lot of them are gearing up to be that portal.
Okay.
And do that business over there while they can still do the business over here with their 5% with donations and everything like that, if they want. But they're going to get into the SEC requirements of, and other people might too. But it is, still very complex as far as, that goes. And, if you had a regular prospectus and you were going to, solicit people and, you suppose you have an LLC, you want to sell shares in your LLC, all right, that goes under the SEC. There's certain, rules and regulations in Ohio and in federal, Securities and Exchange Commission, where if you're going to have an unlimited amount of investors, there's more strict rules. And if you're going to have like your limited investors limited to either 35 or less than 10, there's a small, there's a small filing that you do under the SEC. It's actually Regulation W, and it's referred to in the Ohio law, where you can just file with them and say, I'm not soliciting anybody over, like only 35. I'm limiting my thing to that, and then you can go ahead and solicit those 35 people. Get that many under that kind of filing. It's a really small filing.
Now is that the subchapter? That's okay.
It either, like anything where it's been, I wanted to talk about this because a guy asked about it, and I wrote an article about that too, LLCs in films. If you want somebody to come in as an investor to your film and be part of your LLC, a member manager or something like that, okay, everybody can contribute to that. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about having an LLC and then all your managers are like, oh, we're going to go out and get investors. Not guys that are coming in, they're film guys. No. Guys with money, they're just going to be quiet and be silent investors like on Broadway, and they're going to come in. So there's requirements for that as far as, the same thing, how much money they lose. They literally get in there and say, like, if you make under 100,000, you can only invest this portion of your amount. Oh yeah, they're trying to help the investors. You're not trying to help the filmmakers or anything. They're trying to help these poor people who are investing in stuff, and they may never get any money back, but at least they want to know that their money is being used to make the movie and not for some guy's commission or something. But there's criminal consequences for stuff like that. So
when you get down to it, it's still there's significant there's significant not loopholes, but hoops that an individual has to go through in order to raise it. So that hasn't changed.
No.
Okay.
The only thing this crowdfunding thing does is, like, say you could go out to like strangers on the internet, any damn buddy, the way that they do with the Indiegogo and everything, and you're not offering them anything except like a whatever percentage of the formula that you use, and then that person has to put in paperwork that they don't make a certain amount. I mean, the rules haven't even been done yet. They've just been done for the big gigantic ones, which, you know, conceivably you can use that in conjunction with that, you know, like if you had a startup business, not necessarily a individual project, but the distinctions have not really been made as far as the SEC laws go so far, so that's something that has to be updated. I know they're going to come in and get me in another 5 minutes or something, but I just wanted to, as far as the crowdfunding, so watch for that as far as any kind of national news on that. They just came down with that, the decision about the big funders, and now they're going to get down to the little guys on the internet pretty soon. So, of course, that's the last one.
Are you a filmmaker looking for the location of your next project? Contact the North Coast Film Commission. With small cities throughout Ohio, we're here to help with your film, television, and commercial productions. With low to no cost permits and locations, we'll help stretch your budget. From our production resources to our talent database, we will show you just what the North Coast has to offer. Visit northcoastfilmcommission.com today.
This August, come to the film festival where East meets West.
It's an incredible showcase of over 75 films from around the world.
And it's more than just a film festival.
It's a place where filmmakers can gather together with the audience
for one amazing weekend
to celebrate the power,
the drama, the joy,
the magic of independent film.
The Indie Gathering International Film Festival.
It's so much more than you ever imagined.
Last year I talked about the new media, and it has just been exploding as far as platforms, formats, things where you can go and get your content put on those things. Everything from, you know, you're not just got like theatrical release and straight to DVD anymore. You've got everything from digital releases, like you could go to iTunes and download, you don't have to have the physical thing, and straight to internet programming. Now I talked about this last year as far as the SAG and AFTRA rules, the side letter that came up in 2005, they all agreed to that, that would allow for a higher payment to be made to actors and people working on movies that are going straight to the internet. It's at a higher level than what we used to say is straight to DVD. It allows for not only actors that get paid a little bit more so they'll go in your project, but the possibility of getting awards for these things, you know, and you know, you used to have your theatrical release so you can get, you know, Academy Award consideration and stuff like that. Well, I'm not sure what they want for Emmys, but you might have heard that just this new round of Emmy nominations came through a straight-to-internet program from Netflix, House of Cards. It was nominated for a number of Emmys, so you could see the level at which people are regarding and working on stuff with that. So that opens up a lot for, I think, independent filmmakers. You know, you got big guys doing it, but I think it's an interesting thing to think of all the platforms that you could go to. You know, the new distribution model where you've got, as I was mentioning, I just saw an article in the Hollywood Reporter, this film Blood Brother. It was a documentary that won awards at Sundance, and just in August they announced a multi-platform distribution deal, and I mentioned before, between the owners of the film and 4 media companies, ITVS for TV broadcast rights, they're going on PBS, Cinedigm for DVD and digital, and Mongrel Media theatrical release in Canada. Now, what does that tell you? It's like all the other places that you could release stuff, some other company can do it. So you're like not limited. You're only going to Canada. Maybe you can only get a distribution deal in Canada. Okay, fine. If it does better, I can now get a new one over here in Europe or over here in the United States. So that's really good for. And now you know, like distribution deals come out of, you know, getting up to Sundance and getting into some of these conventions and some of these film, you know, some of these big film conventions and things. So I think it's getting harder and harder for independent filmmakers to pay for the clearance of rights for music, for film clips and things like that. There's the last case I'll mention is just came down in 2013. This is the second case that has come out of the Jersey Boys. That music, the musical, that's the stage play. You know, it's not been made. They're not talking about the movie or anything like that. The play itself incorporates a 7-second clip from the Ed Sullivan Show of Ed Sullivan in his iconic way introducing the 4 seasons. Okay, so you know the Jersey Boys is about the 4 seasons of Frankie Valli. So the person who owned the Ed Sullivan Show sued the makers of the producers of the play for copyright infringement for that clip. Now it's only 7 seconds. Well, as we've been talking about before over the years, the amount is not the important thing when you're talking about an infringing somebody's piece of work. You know, Ed Sullivan just as announcing is like a very iconic thing, and not only that, but it's something where you'd think that somebody could protect somebody from using it. Well, the court over in California, the Ninth Circuit said that the fair use defense that they brought in, the play people, that prevailed, which is a rare thing, folks, because fair use as a defense is difficult to prove and difficult to make stick.
You two have disrupted my classroom for the last time.
What are you gonna do about it? Spank us?
She can't spank us. It's against the law.
Spanking would be too easy. I want to cause more permanent damage.
And cut! Curious? Visit theindiegathering.com, a film festival, and so much more.
The clip was used in the play as in the musical as a biographical anchor, the court said. And the band got onto the Ed Sullivan Show. This is what a historical context was interesting. The band got onto the Ed Sullivan Show despite the wild popularity of the British invasion at that time. This was in January 1966. And so the court went into the decision putting that as context and saying that the clip was put to transformative use, which is what you want to get. You transform somebody else's work into your own work by doing a number of different things. The clip was put to transformative ends and not for its own entertainment. In other words, you didn't have it up there just because, you know, it's more popular if you got Ed Sullivan up there. Even though other fair use factors that they discussed was the amount and substantiality. We already said it was 7 seconds. But it was not copyrightable in itself. It was just an identification thing that he did to announce bands. It wasn't in any kind of, he didn't say any, it's not talking about any iconic thing that he always said, like, let's get ready to rumble, that's a trademark phrase. He just announced a band in his way. So they felt that that was not significant as far as the content of the clip went, and it wasn't copyrightable in itself. So even though Ed Sullivan's style is, you know, iconic, it's not copyrightable. The impact on the market, which is another one of the factors that you look at as far as fair use. Jersey Boys was not reproduced on DVD or video. There was no repeat viewing. The court really did turn on that as far as this element. So Jersey Boys was not a substitute for the Ed Sullivan Show. They weren't taking the market for the Ed Sullivan Show and substituting theirs so people buy theirs instead of Ed Sullivan's show. So it was held that the Jersey Boys' use of the clip did not damage the copyright in the Ed Sullivan Show. So there was no hurt to the person that owned it, and they were allowed to use it. So that's kind of an interesting thing. People ask me all the time about fair use, and as I said before, don't forget any kind of thing like that. You've been sued. You're in court. Your lawyer has to make a defense. The defense is like, oh, it's fair use. Boom, I'm out of court. Goodbye, everybody. No. You got to go in there and argue that, and it's on a case-by-case basis. So that's why we want to, you know, in my particular end of entertainment law, I'm not a litigator, I'm not a deal maker or anything like that. There's plenty of you out there who do that. I want to make sure that we don't get into court, that the contract, the situation is understood well enough, and you know, the agreement is set out clearly enough that there won't be any arguments and people having to go into court to hash out who said what. So that is all I have for today. I'm 3 minutes over. Does anybody have a quick question before they throw me out?
I was going to maybe suggest that you speak to, because you kind of alluded to it, but maybe to make it a little bit more visceral.
Yeah. That
going to court is not a cheap endeavor.
Oh, it sure isn't.
And it will break you as quickly as if they actually...
We're not talking about a contingent fee contract here, kids. We're looking at, you know, engaging a lawyer with a significant retainer probably, because they're going to be, you know, doing a lot of depositions and things like that. I mean, it's not like a medical case where you got to bring in experts, but you may have to bring in, you know, other people to testify and stuff like that. And right off the bat, it's very expensive. Just to defend something like that. And God forbid you got in there and a guy had, you know, like, for example, Minute Syndicate, Insane Clown Posse stole some of their actual whole tunes and then put their you know, inimitable lyrics over them. And they were sued, and Midnight Syndicate, the guys had individually registered for copyright each song, each recording, and each composition. So they were looking at 7 compositions, you know, that's 14, this amount of infringement. It was like $1.2 million statutory damages was the claim. Now they settled out of court, but you got to figure it was for a significant amount. So you don't want to be on the hook for something like that, and your court costs and everything like that, and paying your lawyer. So, you know, the contract situation, the intellectual property situation is something that I know you guys, it's so difficult for filmmakers to obtain things like that, and it's very expensive. But just to be aware of situations where, you know, maybe it just would have taken asking permission of somebody. You never know. They might have liked your movie or something. But to wait and see, well, maybe they won't catch me, you know, and I'm going to be a gorilla. For stuff like that, it's really not worthwhile. You know, I mean, the guerrilla filming is one thing, but taking people's stuff is another. Because, you know, with the internet around and everything, people can find stuff like that. anything on YouTube, you know how they have the takedown notices on YouTube for copyrighted material. You know, people are like, it disappeared. I didn't. Yeah, but that's because you have somebody else's copyrighted stuff in here, so they search for stuff like that. So, but anyway, thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience today. I really appreciate you guys coming in. And like I said, if you want to take a card, you can go to my website and read about lots more things. So, you know, you can't fit them in 45 minutes. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.